my best friends started drawing in the last 6 months or so, and they said some advice they'd come across was don't use references, and I've seen a couple of art advice videos that mention it too. I just wanted to throw in my 2 cents, because I can prove to you with just a few pictures that that is terrible advice. This is the cover image I drew for Miss Prince. Looks pretty decent. For something I drew about 8 years ago, I don't hate it, which is pretty good, because normally I do. It's just normal artist progression. This is the second version of the picture though. You want to see the first one? Here it is. This was drawn with no reference, at least for Lucinda. I can't remember why I didn't draw it without a reference, but I didn't. And if this doesn't prove it, nothing will. Reference? No reference. Reference? No reference. Reference? No reference. I'm not saying that the cover image is perfect, but this is something that I'm happy for people to pay money for. This, not so much. And there's no huge skill gap here. I didn't draw the second version months or years after the first one. It was just a few weeks. I just didn't have the materials to put together the photo or anything, because it was a photo of myself that I used. And I have another example here. This is a background I drew for one of my comics. It was a redraw of a simple background from a low-effort, silly piece from a couple of years before. But again, one was with references, and one was without. What is that? They look like wooden planks with green fluff stuck on, and that's an optimistic description. I'll show you something I drew with a bunch of references. I actually made this changeling cloak myself because I really wanted to get it right. I'm not suggesting that you make everything in your scene, but if it really has to be right and it's not too hard, then it can help. I did have fun making that fairy cloak. It was the second one that I made. The first one was a feathered cloak I made for a raffle, and never again. It was a raffle prize, never again. I also made a bunch of references for the trees. I have lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures of trees. I hate drawing trees. Why are there so many freaking trees in Fairyland? Why do I do this to myself? If anyone wants to use any of these for references, they're on my DeviantArt. I don't even ask for credit if it's just for a reference. Credit would be nice, but I don't mind. I put those up there to help other artists out. I recommend highly building up your own reference library of whatever you need. Houses, streets, a classroom, bedroom, trees, water. Most of the photos I've taken anywhere, I've taken for references. There's hardly a person in any of my photos. I tend to pose in front of mirrors for stuff like arms and hands, but if it's more complicated, I ask someone else to take a photo, or I get them to pose for me. One thing that is an advantage to you if you have your own photo library is that you can just trace stuff off the photos if you need to. I think, for example, that hand, I ended up tracing it because I was just having trouble. Like, I tried and tried, and I had a deadline, so I couldn't just keep redrawing the hand and it being terrible. So I just traced it, and it was my photo, so I could do that. If it's someone else's photo, do not do that. That is a copyright violation. But if it's your own photo, you can do what you want. Obviously, it's nice if you don't have to trace anything, but, you know, if you're struggling, if you got a deadline and it just keeps going wrong, you're just getting fed up, just trace a little bit, it's fine. But yeah, I do have to stress, do not trace other people's work. That is not okay in a big way. That is why I recommend that you build up your own reference photo library. You can also buy stock photos and things, but you'd have to check the terms for any stock that you buy. For example, it might not be okay for commercial use, or there might be special terms for commercial use. And if you're still thinking, oh, professional artists don't do that, there's entire books in Japan that are just photos of streets and temples and classrooms and stuff that are mainly for manga artists. I came across some when I was in Japan, but I'd been like not doing art for 8 years. After college crushed my spirit. But yeah, it was like I was just starting to get back into art towards the end of the year, but when I came across them, I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna need that in a year or two. Idiot. Anyway, yeah, they're really super useful. And that's actually the kind of book that Will gets for his grandma in Fairy Roots. But yeah, I wasn't at a total loss because, like I say, I do tend to take a lot of photos of backgrounds. So I did have some photos of Japan. You can see I used some in one of my comic pages. I hope that I've shown you that references are super useful. If anyone is looking for a reference, you can look at my DA, or you can comment, and if I have a photo or photos in my collection, I'd be happy to upload it for you. Most of my photos are nature-based, so fields and trees. So many trees. I could maybe get some references if I don't have them. If I don't have to go like more than like 10 minutes walk from my house, obviously with lockdown restrictions. I have a bunch of photos from like Japan and Iceland and Norway. I can't promise I have what you need, but if I do have it, you're welcome to it. I do want to create some kind of artist and author resources on here of this kind of type. If people are requesting something and I don't have it, but I can create it easily, I will do it. For reference, I live in the UK. I have like the odd foodie picture as well, like fancy hot chocolate or smoothie bowls. I don't really do people poses though. I'm reluctant to offer people poses because those would have to be of me, and I don't want to do that. If I have any hand poses that I've taken, I'm happy to use those that I've done for myself. So yeah, I guess just try me. I won't be able to help all the time, but I'll do what I can.